Hey, this is Christopher McCore. Welcome to the Shift Show, where we bring spirit to bear on trending issues. And the the issue that I'm going to be talking about today is collective rites of passage, collective initiation. And I've been reading a book um, called Radical Regenerations by Andrew Harvey. And I'm not very far into the book. It's actually by Andrew Harvey and Carolyn Baker, um, who actually lives in Boulder, which is where I live. And I'm not very far into the book, but one of the I was reading last night, and this one idea came forward, which is that we're in the midst, our society, humanity, is in the midst of um, excuse me, in the midst of uh, a collective rites of passage, um, and I that idea, grabbed hold of my interest, my curiosity, and I started working with it. Today, did a little bit of research about what are the elements, the components of a rites of passage, and how can that apply to um, to our to the collective, to humanity at large. Um, Usually rites of passage are in a society, and when adolescents come of age, they're it's built in traditional societies. It's built in. You can find this in third world countries that still have a lot of tradition, but you can also find it like in the Jewish tradition, and in the West here we kind of pride ourselves at being modernized and stripping ourselves of useless um, antiquity, but I think this is an example of something that is that we've lost something by stripping ourselves of the rites of passage. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and I've created a chart like I often do with the Enneagram to show these components. And what I'm what I'm asking, what I'm presenting here is really a works in progress. It's a question to us to apply it to our situation. How does this apply to humanity at large, and and how can it help to ground us in what's happening, and not dismiss what's happening, and in hopes of everything going back to normal. There is a challenge being presented. There is a call to action. There's a knocking on the door, and it, it's not just something to be fixed. It's not something that can be fixed because as Andrew Harvey describes in the book, it's what he would call a predicament rather than a problem. And a predicament is not something that can be solved. It's actually something that is meant to transform, and that is the shift that I'm referring to when I say welcome to the Shift Show, and it's the rites of passage that we're in, and knowing that it's a rites of passage, I believe we can um, we can face this predicament with more awareness and with more dedication, so that we actually the fruit of this is not to get back to normal. It's not to create a world um, that better suits us. It's to create a new human that is more responsible in the world that we live. And so anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just start that going. Just give me a minute here to move some things around. Okay. So there was this a guy, a famous guy, Van Kennep, I believe his name is, and he came up with this. He did this kind of classic writing on rites of passage, and he identified the three stages of rites of passage, which is separation, transition, and reincorporation. And of course, so we see those basic stages here in the triangle of the Enneagram. Okay, so before excuse me, before the actual ritual begins, there or in preparation. Here's the preparation for this rites of passage. There's a foundation, and the foundation is based on it incorporates. It's built on discussion, right? And that's that's what I mean by discussion is the ability to freely share viewpoints, and that there's respect for everybody's viewpoint. And the way that I've addressed this, in the last few years is realizing the need for tolerance in our society. We've gotten more polarized, and people have, very easily slid down the slope of dehumanizing each other because of conflict in views. And I actually came up with a tolerance, what I call the tolerance protocols, and I will post a file in the discussion so that you could take a look at that. But there's, with that, when we establish that sense of, we get back to a sense of community where people are allowed to belong to themselves and to belong to each other, that community becomes a foundation, right? It's like the context that's holding this shift, this transition, this rites of passage that we're going through, and within that foundation is also a set of new expectations and behaviors and values, and within that is also the actual ritual, the framework. The rituals defined in one of the writings that I was reading as it's a detailed sequence of meaningful actions, and so it's sort of like an obstacle course. It's it's like a racetrack, and if you stay on the track, you actually have the chance of winning, so to speak. But the other part of this, the setup here, we're talking about a setup for the ritual, for this actual transformation, this transition that happens, is relationship, and its relationship to the relationship is set up in the discussion in the community, but it's also between the initiates and the mentors. And what's important to realize is that the mentors have to have done the work in order to teach the work. It's not just something. It's not like a dry academic, passing down. It's like this is real, substantial inner work that leads to actual evolution, human evolution, and and also the relationship with ancestors, in the sense of the tradition that comes to us, and this is really where we in the West have a lot to learn. That's another one of the things that we've shunned, from ancient culture is relationship with ancestors, and I'm as much to blame for that lack as anybody else. And then also the myths, that there are myths or stories. The myths used to be told in tales and stories, and they define a culture. They define the relationship between spirit and matter, and I think it's safe to say that um, movies and shows have become the modern myth, the messengers of myth, and but we're and so some of the myths that are being created, the new myths that are being created, are about for instance, about superhumans, about um, superheroes, people who have advanced abilities, and that's part of what's going on here, is that we're actually in this process of transitioning into a new identity, into a new set of competencies, and which lead to the stewardship of the earth. Um, so the first stage in this rites of passage is separation, and it's if you've done any psychological work, psychotherapy, it's the individuation process, where we separate from father and mother, and we become ourselves, or we incorporate the father and mother in ourselves, so that it becomes a conscious part of who we are. And that requires reflection. It requires silence. In such a busy society, where there's so much distraction, so much media, um, creating times of silence, reflection, meditation, in order to discover who we are, instead of like pinging off of all the all the conditioning that's presented to us from everywhere, from our family, from our friends, from media, from government, from businesses that want your business, and so it's a process of owning our own projections, that based on the 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 premise that everything that occurs in our world, everything we perceive, is a result of what we carry in ourselves. And so when we take the time to self-reflect, we can realize that everything that is happening in our world is a result of 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 our own beliefs. When someone pisses us off, we generally, there's something in ourselves that we're denying, and that person is actually representing that denial. And like I said, we're actually shedding, like our mother and father, and our dependencies, are shedding our codependency, um, including our dependency upon, on the authorities. That the authorities know best, that our government is taking care of us. It really comes down to being a conscious um, unit of self that can um, cleanly apprehend its own existence, and from there make conscious decisions. And yeah, so one of the aspects of that happens in this process of rites of passage is that there's sacrifice involved. There's a giving up, or giving away. We're giving away our old beliefs. We're giving away our immaturity. We're giving away our selfishness, because and and the initiate is actually in these cultures where in these cultures where rites of passages are considered very important. The initiate, the adolescent, they're actually considered dangerous. They're dangerous to themselves, and they're dangerous to the society, because they haven't owned their projections. They haven't shed their codependencies. They haven't, individuated, um, and so because of that, there's the need for the mentor. And especially in this process, when they enter this process of separation, they become especially dangerous, become unstable. And so one of the things that that I see that we as a society have to give up is this sense that this biblical sense that man is meant to dominate over nature. It's like we've run the course of that premise, of that belief, and it's time for us to co-create with with nature, with nature instead of dominating over it. And usually, what happens in this process of rites of passage, of initiation, is there is a challenge presented. And typically this can be like the initiate has to go out in the woods by themselves I remember one instance in one culture, the initiate is buried from the neck down in the earth for like 5 days, three or 5 days, and like food is brought to them, but basically they've become the earth, and they have to experience that. In these rites of passages, they're, I mean, in a sense, it's voluntary because it's like they come of age, and there's not something that's specifically, like forcing them. Well, that's not true. I mean, their society is forcing them to do. So, I guess in a way, rites of passage, they're whether it's set up by your society to do it, or whether it just comes in the form of adversity. It's forced, and that's what I see. This collective rites of passage, this initiation that we're in, it's a forced. It's rites of passage where it's not voluntary. It's like we've hit the adversity. The pandemic is like the first wave of it, and well, actually before that was global warming, but we kept just denying that's a lot of people just kept denying that's has anything really that important, that should be attended to, paid attention to. But it's like we're from with this idea that we're these the challenges and the adversities are not they're not just here to as problems to be fixed. They're challenges to force our graduation, our transition. There's like a molting that has to happen. And if we don't pay attention to the first call, like the pandemic, then the next one's going to come. And then if we don't pay attention to that, then the next one's going to come with earth cataclysms. And then or with riots and war. It's like I think it's really, really important to realize that these are not things to find solutions to, and to be just kind of like okay, I'm glad we're over that. It's like we are the problem, and these things are coming as ways for us to solve the problem that is us. And unless we take it upon ourselves, recognize it as that this is this transformation that we're being asked to go through it's like it's all about us. We've got to meet this. We've got to accept this. And so that in the transition, and it's of course it's the shift that we've been talking about, like I mentioned before, but there's this element of non-ordinary reality. And that can come about through reflection and meditation. It can come about through the challenges. It can also come about it's like uh, through a polar shift, or if you believe in extraterrestrials, that they would come and they would intervene in some way, or not exactly intervene, but they would make their presence known, and that would be a huge like shift in consciousness. It's like, holy crap, like we're not, we can't be so arrogant to think anymore that we're like the top of the totem pole, and it's like there's actually more going on than meets the eye. And it's another possibility. There are I don't I've felt for a while that there are secrets in the pyramids of Egypt, and that have been locked away, and those secrets are such that when revealed will also create a huge shift in human consciousness. And so that's another possibility. This is where I really need your help. I'm asking for your participation in this. Is like, what are the collective correlations here of all these elements? Like, what is the foundation, and what are these relationships, and and how does this separation happen in our society? How can it happen? And what are we giving up? Big one right here. What are we giving up, and how are we being challenged? And what are the new set of expectations and behaviors and values? And how can this ritual, how can this ritual of initiation be? How can we establish this for ourselves, and have it something that we can agree upon, so that as we go through this, we're actually, it's like, yeah, we're there for each other. We have each other's back, and we know the path we're walking. And when we do molt, and we become butterflies, so to speak, what one of the values that comes forward is service. Service to this bigger reality that we've that our immaturity hasn't allowed up until now to actually see. We've just been looking at our own small worlds and needs, and so now we're open to a bigger reality that actually goes beyond the earth, and goes into the whole, the solar system and the universe, the galaxy and universe. But we also develop new skills. And what are some of these skills? That's, I always thought, I've heard, I think it was Drunvalo Melchizedek who said that the fact that a society has technologically advanced is not an indication of an advanced society. It's an indication of a society that's about to become advanced. In other words, the technology is a precursor to the inner technology. So the fact that we can speak with anybody, not only speak but see anybody, around the world, that is like, in my perspective, that's it's a precursor to telepathy, for instance. That's a new competency. So what are these new competencies? I'd really like to hear this. And and what it ends up to be is this the overall competency is stewardship. Stewardship of the earth. That we are here to create heaven on earth. And because humans can become the whole universe, God can the God. I recently came across a woman who's Stacy Hartman is her name, and she's created this term GUS, which is just an acronym for God, Universe, Source. It's like, whatever you want to call that, we'll just call him Gus. Okay, so Gus, we can become Gus, or Gus can effectively create through us. We have that potential. Human beings have that. We have that Gusness about us, and and when we do that, when that's done, then we are the stewards of this planet. We create heaven on earth. We create, harmony. We we bring heaven and earth together and create harmony. Um, and the last stage of this process, and I think it's good, to not only look at this as a timeline, but that these elements are happening simultaneously, that we can celebrate, what the wins that are happening even now. You know, um, we can we can invite a sense of play with this, a sense of joy. How do we go through this transition, this very sobering, you know, um, requiring our dedication and our critical thinking and our self, our sacrifice and our you know honesty with ourselves, and also do it with a sense of sacredness and joy, and because there's a new identity being created here. We are becoming divine humans. We are we are becoming the divine tribe. There's lots of ways you could look at it. We are moving into Christ consciousness, where there is a change, and typically what's done in the rites of passage is that there's some kind of change of appearance that's symbolically created in order so that it's we are reminded of how we've changed, and that can be a tattoo, or it can whatever it is, and this is another area where I would like you all to really kind of chime in here. And it's like, so the way I'd like to see your participation with this, if you feel inspired, if you got some ahas with this, and you go, yeah, this sounds like something worth kind of wrapping my head around, and that we could, maybe that we could do this as a group. What I'd like to see, is just in comments, just say, celebration, and then just like, what do you see that being in our world, or what are some other challenges that you see, and just whatever, just name the there's 9 points here: foundation, relationship, separation, sacrifice, challenge, transition, new identity, and celebration, and reincorporation. And just name one of those points, and then whatever comments you want to put, but especially comments about how that applies to our collective, to humanity, and in this current time, and moving into the future. So anyway, I'm going to stop my screen share. I hope this was useful. And once again, I'm Christopher McClure. This is Welcome to the Shift Show, where we bring spirit to bear on trending issues. And today's topic is collective rites of passage. So I look forward to speaking with you in the comments. And once again, if you're watching this video outside of the group, there is a Facebook group called Welcome to the Shift Show, and that's really the hub. That's where that's where I'm going to put all the links, and where all the discussion, a lot of the discussion happens. So please join the group if you feel inspired. Thank you.